Why did the United States suddenly cut funding for Ukraine, and why is it important right now? Now, I don't do politics, but this video is tangential to the situation in Ukraine and therefore important to understand what's going on. This video is also being made the morning after a vote in the United States Senate where an extension of America's budget was just passed, and that's a story in itself that we're going to get to. Now, if I get a little historical, it's because not all of my viewers are American, so forgive me for starting from the basics. Now, in America, we have three branches of federal government. The executive, that's our president. The legislative, that's our Congress. And judicial, that's our Supreme Court. Each branch has different kinds of powers, and believe it or not, the president actually doesn't have a lot of power to create laws or set budgets. The power to make laws and authorize budgets is with Congress, which is pretty much like any other parliament in any other democracy. The United States Congress is split into two different branches, the Senate and the House of Representatives. There are only 2 senators from each state for a total of 100, and there are 50 states in the U.S. Senators represent the entire state. They're not elected from an individual district. It's also more like a prestigious club. Many of them consider themselves to be the adults in the room of Congress. For example, there was a senator from the U.S. state of Pennsylvania who caused a minor scandal because he refused to wear a suit. The House of Representatives is a little bit different. There are 435 members of the House of Representatives, and many of them are elected from smaller districts. So these representatives are held highly accountable to the individual voters who elected them from that district. Now, there's essentially 2 parties in the U.S., Republicans and Democrats. Republicans tend to be measured as red on a map, and Democrats tend to be blue. Now, occasionally, third-party candidates do get elected to Congress or local government, such as former U.S. Navy SEAL and professional wrestler Jesse Ventura, but that is rare. Now, a bill needs 218 votes to pass the House, which is a simple majority. As of right now, there are 221 Republicans in the House of Representatives and 212 Democrats with 2 vacancies. So really, you need 218 votes to get anything passed through Congress. So that means all you need are 4 Republican legislators who won't play ball on a bill, and everything can grind to a halt. Now, recently, a spending bill was tied to something called a government shutdown. Essentially, the U.S. government operates from September 30th to September 30th, and if they can't agree on a budget, the government won't be legally allowed to spend money. Some agencies are exempt because they get their funding from other sources, like the Social Security Administration, the Veterans Administration, which provides health care to veterans, or even the NCUA, which regulates credit unions. But the vast majority of government employees won't get paid, including the military. Now, there was a sticking point that several Republican legislators kind of latched onto, and that was spending for Ukraine and border security. And it's kind of surprising how the two aren't related, but they made them seem like they were. For some Republican members of the House, and remember, a lot of these guys are elected by a very hyper-aware local demographic who is very interested in specific issues. The issue of border security became a really big deal. And if you look at the U.S. southern border, there is a huge humanitarian crisis. Nobody seems like they're doing anything to either prevent people from crossing, care for them once they've come across, or discourage them from making a really dangerous journey in the first place. So what they have is a valid concern. It just isn't really tied to Ukraine. Now, one of the ways that these lawmakers have kind of played to their base is that they've said we can't secure the border because the money is going to Ukraine. And they're different buckets of money, and the U.S. is able to do other things. We're a pretty darn big country, but this is the narrative that has developed. Now, if you repeat a lie often enough, eventually people start to believe it. And you might repeat it more often if it becomes popular and gets you attention and gets you funding for the next election. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of easy to believe because somehow you see weapons getting offloaded in Ukraine, but no status immigrants are still coming over the border. America could shut down the southern border tomorrow, like that. You just ain't gonna like what you see on TV when we do that. But the problem is that the alternative of not shutting down the border doesn't look too good on TV either. So the default policy at the border right now is kind of to ignore it because the current American president has a base as well. And that base tends to be far away from the border on the coasts or in suburban areas that aren't really affected by the border crisis. Now, these certain elements in the House essentially tied passing the America's budget to removing funding for Ukraine and increasing border security. That bill's name is H.R. 5860, and you can read the full text of it online. I have a link to it on my Substack, which you can get at ryanmcbeth.substack.com. The key part is this, Division A, Section 101, Subsection 11. This highlights the Department of State Foreign Operations and Related Appropriations Act of 2023. Specifically, Public Law 117 through 328, entitled Making Consolidated Appropriations for the Fiscal Year ending September 30th, 2023, and Providing Emergency Assistance for the Situation in Ukraine and for other purposes. Strangely enough, that law actually exempts one specific section called Section 7069, which outlines how much money can be used by the Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA, to build treatment facilities for water pollution control along the United States-Mexico border. And if you're wondering how money for water treatment got shoehorned into a bill about defending Ukraine, I'd love to know that too. Now, this bill that was just passed last night allows for continued spending for the next 45 days. The U.S. government can continue paying its bills for the next 45 days. We just can't really donate any money or equipment to Ukraine. And then we have to go through this budget process again after 45 days. So what does this mean for Ukraine? Well, if anything is in the pipeline regarding weapons or equipment, that money has already been spent. So if weapons like ATACMS missiles or Bradley replacement parts are on their way there, I don't think that'll change anything. Monitoring the battlefield and intelligence collections shouldn't change anything either from the NATO side. Operation Atlantic Resolve is still going on. Operations in Syria and Iraq are still going on. The military is still funded. The problem is that nothing new is going to happen for the next 45 days. So think of it like putting a kink in a garden hose. The water's still in that pipeline and it's still flowing, but eventually the water is going to stop flowing. And then once you release that kink and restart the pipeline of weapons and equipment, it's going to take a little while for that water to flow through the garden hose and get out the other side. That being said, I gotta give one final thing. I believe in America. It's the country that took my family in from Northern Ireland and gave me a chance at life that I would have never had in Lisburn. One reason that I believe in supporting Ukraine is that as Americans, we should support freedom and fight evil. Freedom is a good thing. I mean, for years, the U.S. was that beacon of freedom. I mean, why do you think we have a border crisis and Russia doesn't? You don't exactly see lines of people trying to get into Russia because they want freedom and economic opportunities to live a better life. I have faith that the congressmen that were so intransigent on this issue of military aid to Ukraine will see the light. I have faith that they will do the right thing for freedom. We are the good guys in this. We have the weapons to stop the forces of evil and are allies with brave men who stand ready to give their lives to defeat that evil. This is a fight of good against evil, and evil can never be dead enough. Thank you guys for watching.
Hey everyone! New Ryan McBeth t-shirts and hoodies from Bunker Branding are available. I'm gonna get the HIMARS shirt. What are you gonna get, Donald? The Patriot shirt, because I'm a patriot. It's the best shirt, the biggest shirt. Make 14 tangos great again. What are you going to get, Barack? Let me be clear. I'm going to get a Drone Sweet Drone shirt. What about you, George?
I'm going to get a knife hand shirt because they're weapons of mass destruction. What about you, Billy?
Oh, I'm going to get a landmine marker shirt because my presidency always blew up in my face.
I'll tell you what I'm going to get.
Ronald Reagan, but you're dead.
I came back to tell you that no matter our politics, we're all Americans. And we should buy Ryan's hoodies and t-shirts because they pay for the stock footage and licenses that allow him to make awesome content. So come on down to Bunker Branding and buy a Ryan McBeth t-shirt or I'll start the bombing in 5 minutes.